Hey guys, it is Marcus and Terry back with you on this wonderful Thursday, which I think it finally got hot in California. I have heard rumors
It
that it
did.
is in fact hot.
It's cooling down today,
There you
but
go. We got it's hot and rainy. We had like crazy rain this morning, crazy rain yesterday, crazy rain the day before. It's a rainy summer, but nobody cares because it's like 90, so it's all right. All right, so if you guys are joining us, say something in the box. Let us know you are here. Today, what we're going to be doing is talking about the cycle of addiction. What does the cycle of addiction look like? How do we break out of the cycle of addiction? How does the cycle of alcoholism work? And how do we break out of that? Because a lot of times, what we find is we find ourselves stuck in a pattern, stuck in a rut, stuck where we can't find a way out. And we're really wondering, like, how do we deal with this? How do we focus? How do we get out of the rut and finally stop drinking? So, we are going to go over that today and bring you guys in on our little secrets, which aren't really secrets, but they do help us. So, we're going to talk about that today. Terry, before we dive in, what was the story like of your cycle of addiction? Like, if we can take a magnifying glass or like a way to look into it, what did it look like for you emotionally, physically, and the addiction? Like were you able to separate and look at, okay, here's me and here's the addiction, or was it all wrapped up? Tell us what that was like.
well, for me, it was really wrapped up, and I didn't really realize that I was addicted until maybe the last couple of years of my use. Definitely, um, my initial, addiction has many phases, and initial use is the first phase of the cycle of addiction. And my initial use was back, like 11 years old, and I just drank here and there a little bit. But whenever it was available, I drank. In high school, drank quite a bit more because we were able to get alcohol, and that's I drank whenever we had a chance. I was at a public school. There were after school kegs. There were parties every weekend. And I took advantage of all that. And then, getting into college, same thing. Alcohol was everywhere. And, as an adult, I kept drinking what most people would probably consider heavy, but what I didn't consider it that heavy. And I was able to have a life and not live the alcohol per se. And but going through my adulthood, I kind of always wanted more emotionally. There was something I wanted, but I had no idea what it was. Alcohol seemed to take care of that. I don't know that I consciously thought about that, but
Mm-hmm.
alcohol would kind of take that edge off of that that craving for more of
Mm-hmm.
whatever I wanted. I didn't know what it was. And that would be kind of the second phase of the cycle of addiction, which is kind of continued use. Eventually, as my tolerance, which is another phase of this cycle of addiction, is I started to need more. So I started to abuse the alcohol. The intake just went up more and more. And as it progressed over actually a couple of decades, it just became I became dependent on it, which is a later stage of that cycle of addiction. Is I needed it. I needed alcohol to just function normally. And even in those last few years, I became completely dependent on it, where I couldn't not have alcohol in my system. I needed it all the time, and that that was when I was really looking for more of something, and I was always going to get it tomorrow, and I didn't know what it was. But once again, that alcohol would take that edge off just a little bit, or I thought it would take the edge off. Actually, it was pushing that want for more just down the road a little bit until I sobered up, which eventually I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I'd stop drinking, I'd go through those withdrawals,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'd have to drink again. I
Mm-hmm.
tried quitting here and there, and the detox symptoms and the withdrawal, they're too much for me. So I just say F it and drink again.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people have trouble with relapse, and not everybody does. I know a lot of sober alcoholics that they quit once and that's it. They've stayed stopped, which that that's actually more common than one would think. I do also deal with many people that relapse constantly, and both of them are they're difficult. But the key for me was is to really break that cycle
Mm-hmm.
of the addiction of getting. I had to get through the withdrawals. I had to figure out a new way to live,
Mm-hmm.
figure out that what I have is enough, and I don't need to find that more of whatever I was looking for as I was growing up and going through adulthood and all that. So,
Yes.
yeah, that's kind of my story in a nutshell as far as the feelings and the emotions.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really use alcohol to cover up any anxiety or any bad things that happened to me. I had a fairly safe childhood, nothing too traumatic. Of course, life happens, but I was able to pretty much roll with the punches.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Anxiety. I would use alcohol towards the end to cover up that anxiety from maybe some of the legal things, trouble that I got into, and some of the personal relations troubles I got into, and just all those things that happen when alcohol is number one in your life and everything else is comes after that.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting how you said that a lot of people either relapse or some people just never relapse. And it's interesting for me because I look at the cycle, and the reason I'm large today is because we're going to write on this here board and show you what the cycle looks like. Also, for those of you guys who do want to support the channel, get some extra MP3s and everything, we have beautiful Talk Sober embroidered shirts for you guys. So if you do want to help out with that, and if you do want one but you can't help out, join our Facebook group and we'll figure out a way to get one to you. If you can't afford it, I get it. Sometimes alcohol puts us in a position where we can't. I know I was there. And so we got to look at that. But for me, it was interesting because you could look at me and say, well, Marcus, he got out of rehab and the dude never relapsed. I mean, what's he, some phenomenon or something? And while that does happen with some people, I will challenge that and say, yeah, I did relapse, right? So what was the relapse like? Well, before I got sober, I would have a pattern of going maybe a week to 3 weeks without drinking, and then all of a sudden I'd find myself drinking. Like for me, it was very difficult to string together a month. So in that essence, I was trying to get sober. I just didn't have the tools, and so I kept relapsing until finally everything caved in, and it was like, okay, now this is what I have to do. And what I found really worked was kind of like my life was shattered to the core, and I had nothing to stand on. Right before, where I was like, okay, well, I got these opinions, I got these ideas, I am this person. Now it was like, well, shit, all bets are off. I was in a loony bin, right? So it's kind of like, yeah, I really can't argue with that. I really can't sit here and say I'm all great and all stable and everything when that happens. So for me, what it would look like is I started drinking. I mean, my first drink was I was a teenager. I think it was in Vegas. I was a teenager with my uncle, and we would go drink because we got all the stuff free. And he's sober now, by the way, too, which is cool. He had a 60-year bout with drinking or 50-year bout with drinking, and now he's completely sober, and he loves it, and it's crazy. And so we look at it, and it's like, for me, I would go through, and I started drinking at a young age, and then I started drinking, and I found out it helped with my anxiety. It helped with all these things. And as time progressed, I started to want to drink more and more. And when I started to drink, it was harder to stop, right? I would go somewhere and I'd be like, okay, well, everyone else is good and putting it away. And here I am finishing it and asking for more and needing more and everything like that. And so I got to the point where I was like, okay, I know something needs to stop, right? A lot of you guys might be at that point and you're like, I know something's got to budge. I can't live like this anymore, right? Whether there's legal consequences, emotional consequences, whether you're not there for your kids enough, whatever it is, you got to look at that and say, okay, well, now I know something needs to stop, and I know it has to do with drinking, right? How many of you guys are there right now and you're like, I know something needs to stop, and I know it has to do with my drinking, right? And what we have to do is we have to separate the drinking from the shit in the life, right? Because we can look at it and we could say, well, over here, I got legal stuff, I got emotional stuff, I was abused, I got money trouble, or maybe you just simply have like guilt and regret over what's happening when you're drinking, right? So it's like guilt and regret over I'm not there for my kids enough, or guilt and regret over whatever you're doing, ruining relationships, or whatever it is when you drink. Okay, now a lot of people, once they know they have an alcohol problem, they instantly jump to this stuff. And they're like, well, yeah, I have an alcohol problem, but here's my alcohol problem, and I'm going to protect it, right? Here's my alcohol. I'm going to protect my alcohol problem because this isn't really the problem. What's really the problem is the legal stuff. Like, if the legal stuff was handled, I'd be able to drink like a normal person. If the emotional stuff, like, if I could deal with my issues with my mom or my dad or whoever, well, then I'd be able to drink like a normal person. I don't drink like a normal person because of this stuff. And this is what we tell ourselves, and we tell ourselves this so that we can protect our addiction. And we protect our addiction because our addiction is, in our mind, our only hope. Right? We sit there and we say, man, I really screwed up. This really sucks. I got no money. My kids are like, not happy. They don't like that I drink. My job, I just lost my job. The only thing I know how to do, my only hope is drinking, or so it seems. And so what happens is we know this and we think we have these issues, and we think these issues are not related to the alcohol because we're trying to protect the alcohol because, in our mind, it's our only hope. Why the hell would you ever give up on that? Right? Why would you ever give up on it? Well, the way we give up on this is by finding a better hope. A better hope. Because what alcohol is it's a hope that's shallow, and it's a hope that doesn't work, and it's a hope that is temporary. Okay, so what happens is we look at this and we're like, I know I got an alcohol problem. And sometimes we're able to go, maybe we go, like me, I would go 1 to 3 weeks. Okay? It was very difficult that I was able to string together an entire month of not drinking. Now, I know I had a problem. And I would sit there and be like, man, I've been drinking Diet Coke for the last 3 weeks. I am a saint. Look at me go. I am so great. And so I would be happy about this. I'd be like, man, hallelujah, I am not drinking. And then all of a sudden, I would go to lunch. I always go to lunch by myself to kind of digress from work, get out of the house, because I work from home. And all of a sudden, as if someone was behind me, they'd say, a Diet Coke and a Bud Light, please. And I was like, it's a freaking Bud Light. I mean, it's practically water. It's not even that bad. And behind me, someone would say that. Or I'd go into the liquor store, and I get Michelob 55. I mean, it only has 55 calories. It's literally 2% alcohol, right? And you know what alcoholics do when they have something with 2% alcohol is they drink about 5 cases of it because, in addition to having to pee all over the house, we also need to get some kind of buzz off of our 50 million beers. And so we look at this, and I would have these points where I didn't plan it. I was doing good. Nothing in my life went bad. I was like, man, 3 weeks sober, productive, feeling good, everything's going good. And all of a sudden, boom, as if a rock fell from the heavens, I just started drinking again. And I was like, why would I self-sabotage? And that took me back into this stuff. Well, Marcus, you self-sabotage because of your issue with your mother and your issue with your father and your legal stuff and your business stuff and whatever it is, right? And never do we look at it and be like, well, I self-sabotage because I'm a fucking alcoholic, and being an alcoholic makes me want more alcohol at whatever cost. Celebration, I want to drink. Sadness, I want to drink. Bored, I want to drink. What happens is this idea of your only hope, the only thing that you know that makes you feel better, that makes you get out of your head, is alcohol, is a myth, because let me ask you, is it really working? Like, if I looked at my life back then, it wasn't really working.
No, not at all.
Not at all. The 1 to 3 weeks, these worked. Those worked. Now, the first week kind of sucked because it was detox, and that always sucks. The 2 weeks, I was productive. I would get more work done in the 2 weeks than I had gotten in a year of drinking. Like, literally, I'd just sit there and be like, holy shit, I got all this time on my hands. And so I'd look at it and I'd be like, boom, now I'm drinking again, right? Why was I drinking again? I was drinking because thousands of times, probably tens of thousands of times, we'll put a lot of zeros there because it's a lot of times. A lot of times in your life, you have associated drinking with all this stuff being fixed. Okay,
Yep.
so you look at it and you're like, I have anxiety. I'm going to drink. Boom. Instantly, your anxiety goes away. Now, funny thing about that, anxiety usually subsides in about 15 minutes. Usually takes about 15 minutes for the first drink to actually start to take effect. Everything else is your mind playing tricks on you. So whether you have a drink or whether you don't, you're probably going to get the same exact calmness in 15 minutes anyway. Okay, so now all these 1,000 things, these 1,000 times have gone into your brain and they've said, wow, you feel better now. Can't stop thinking? Have a drink. Wow, now I just don't think as much, or whatever it is. And we go through it and we're going through these cycles. And you say, well, why do I keep going through these 1 to 3 week cycles where I feel good and I can't stop drinking? Well, the reason is now you're battling the mental addiction. The physical addiction stops after about a week, maybe 2 weeks, right? That's why we say when you're detoxing, go to the doctor for that first week, first day, first night, whatever, right? When you decide to quit, go to the doctor because that's when the physical stuff happens. That's when your body actually physically is craving alcohol. After the first week, it's all a mental game. And your brain is saying, I know a solution. And you go, man, I'm kind of bored. Nothing to do today. Kids are at dad's. Nothing to do. Kids are at mom's. Got nothing to do. I know drinking is going to help that. And it's a mental battle. And what happens is that mental battle comes in. And you're like, yeah, well, drinking's not that really that good of an idea. But I was so happy. And I miss it. And you know, adults are able to drink. What am I, some kind of freaking kid? I can't drink. Who are you to tell me I can't drink? I was sober for 1 to 3 weeks. I mean, come on, dude. Don't you see how well-rounded of a human being I am? I got this thing handled. And then we take the first drink. And the first drink is the one that you are powerless against. Once you have that first drink, you're pretty much powerless. Why? Because you've tweaked your brain, and your brain's already fighting about alcohol, and now you just tweaked it a little bit with alcohol, and it goes, oh, wow. Oh, shit. I forgot how good this was. I forgot how great this made me feel. And then, boom, you're back to being drunk. And like me, I would sit there at lunch, and I would order the drink, and I'd be like, who ordered that drink? It wasn't me who ordered the drink. And then 3 days later, I'd wake up on the couch wondering what happened the last 3 days. And what happened was I gave in to alcoholism. I gave in to the mental cravings. And that's what they are, is mental cravings. And that's why you can't stay, because you're like Pavlov's dogs. If you've ever heard the story of Pavlov's dogs, Pavlov was a scientist or whatever guy, smart guy. And he would start doing experiments with his dogs. And he'd be like, I'm going to ring a bell and give the dogs food. He'd be like, ding, ding, ding. Dogs would come, he'd be salivating. And he'd be like, here's the food. Right? And they'd be like, yeah, this is great. He'd ring the bell. Again, the next day, ruff, 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 ruff. They'd come salivating and they'd get the food. He'd ring the bell the next day. Ruff, 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 ruff. They'd get the food. And their brain said, bell, food. Bell, food. Bell, food. They'd probably try to eat the bell if you let go of it. But what would happen is he would ring the bell and there'd be no food. And they'd still be sitting there salivating. There was no smell of food. There was no food in sight. There was just a ringing of a bell, just an audio cue that said, hey, I remember that the bell means food. Okay? And this would happen over and over and over again. And all of a sudden, these dogs were conditioned that the bell ringing meant to start getting physical signs of hunger. And the same thing happens in alcohol, but it's very subtle because the human brain is very fast and it's very subtle and it catches things that you won't even think of, right? You won't even think about it. You'll be sitting there and all of a sudden you'll smell something that reminds you of alcohol, or maybe you'll smell alcohol. And your brain will all of a sudden, as if in a split second, it'll go, that smells good. I remember that smell. That used to make me feel good. That was really good. And all of a sudden, you'll start mentally salivating over alcohol. And you'll start craving alcohol. And you'll say, why do I have these alcohol cravings? The reason you have it is because you, like Pavlov's dogs, have been conditioned to want the alcohol. And now, what we need to do is we need to get out of it and say, I've been conditioned. I am performing like a fucking robot that needs alcohol. That's all that's happening. And now that I know that, I'm not going to give in. It's going to come on hard. And sometimes it's like, man, you're going to want to drink, you're going to want to drink, you're going to want to drink. But you got to remember, it's not me who wants to drink. It's the conditioning that wants to drink. And the drink's not even real. It's something out there that I've made up in my mind. Right? Does that make sense to everyone? Any
It
thoughts
does.
on that?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. When I was drinking, I would drink because I need a drink. I had a bad day at work, or I had a great day. This was awesome. Any reason to drink, absolutely. And after I got sober, I learned to disassociate the reasons why I had to have a drink. But even up till now, with almost 5 years sober, I can still almost feel that feeling that I would get when I took that first swig of vodka, after I walked to the liquor store, got home, cracked it open, took a big old swig. I can still feel that. I can still feel it's the dopamine going through my system and that feeling of relief. And that was a hard thing to get over, but I broke the cycle. And that was the key, is I had to break that cycle and understand that one drink, it's going to push me over the edge, and it's not going to be enough.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I go somewhere and I don't tell people I'm an alcoholic. I can't drink. I just say no, thank you. And maybe they're like, well, why not? This stuff's really great. It's a special drink I just made. Sometimes I'll say, you don't have enough in this house for me. So, because I know if I have that one drink, I have to have a lot more. I've proven that to myself. My mind wants to tell me that that's not the case, that I can have one, but I know that I have to keep on drinking if I have one, and that's it. I've been conditioned through my whole life to just drink, and it was the answer for everything. It came down to being as simple as the feeling that I got, that feeling of that just feels great, and then things will remind me of that. Like when I went to a baseball game and this guy had this ice cold beer and it was 95 degrees in those seats and it looked delicious. But I've learned, go get a cold drink right now. Don't watch the next play. Go get a cold soda. I meant to say, but yeah, you got to break that cycle. That's what I had to do, and I've had to learn to do that. I've developed a lot of tools that I use. The cravings don't happen very often. In fact, almost never now, but I still have to be aware of it because that addiction's still in me and it's not going to go away.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because it's like our minds have been hijacked by alcohol.
Right.
And when you have a solution that your mind uses as a go-to for everything, and literally alcohol becomes the go-to for everything. It's like, you fart too loud. Oh, gotta go drink. I mean, maybe you have some kind of issue. You do this, you do that. I gotta drink. I got this issue. And we gotta look at it and say, well, my mind's been hijacked. That's why I have cravings. Because a lot of people try to fight them and they say, well, I got this craving, man. That's not good. That's not good. They should go away. And it's like, well, why should they go away? You fed into the craving thousands of times. Why should it go away? Why don't you just look at it as a non-issue and say, well, of course that's going to happen. Of course, if you sit there by a guy and he's got a big beer, you're going to say, yeah, I want that because I liked it. And so we got to get past it and say, well, what are we going to do? And it's kind of like a self-intervention, right? You got to do a self-intervention on yourself and step away, because that's what intervention's about. Like, you go to someone and you try to get them away from the addiction and say, look what's going on. And if you can get away from the addiction and say, look what's going on, you're being controlled and hijacked and you have been conditioned and brainwashed by alcohol. And now it's time to look back on it and say, oh, I see what's going on. I see what's going on. So if you guys want to share your stories in the box here, in the comment box, let us know, and we are going to take some of those. Looks like Megan's here. Good to see you. Brittany's here. Good to see you. Ty, Holly, and quite a few other people. So Terry,
Yeah.
you see any questions that stand out to you?
Yeah, I haven't looked yet. Let me just start looking. The Commodore says back listening to you guys recently, former binge drinker and would drink heavy one night a week, couldn't stop. Once I had one hangover stop, forced me to stop. I was a binger to self-medicate anxiety. And yeah, absolutely. That's what I hear from a lot of binge drinkers. I was more of a constant binge drinker. I constantly binged. But yeah, the hangovers, I thought that would force me to quit. I thought that being sick the next day would force me to quit. But then I learned to drink more, and then my hangover was gone. Um, yeah. THC, good to see you. Then say good morning. That's my problem. Can't stop once I start. Blackout every time. And you got 5 days this time. THC, good job. Keep going, man. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, and for Megan, she said she's getting her 1 month chip tonight.
Good
Congrats on that.
job. That's a
Awesome.
big one.
Hmm.
And you know what? I see kind of a theme here with what a lot of a bunch of people are saying, at least, and that's that you get a little bit of time and you don't understand why you go back and start drinking. You're sure you're done, then you end up drinking again, and that was me before I finally ended up getting sober, and I didn't know why either. And it doesn't matter. And what matters is what you're doing now. Break that cycle. Keep talking to us. Talk to us on the Facebook group. Talk to other people in person. Maybe a meeting, something like that. Doctors can hook you up with a group if AA is not the way to go or whatever. But it's important to stay there because I feel the same way or I felt the same way you feel, and it's important to really communicate to people. Know that you're not in this alone. Let's see.
Absolutely. And the Facebook group has actually become a really good resource for a lot of people. We have it closed so that no one else can see your stuff other than the people that are in there. Um, so yeah, it's been pretty good.
Let's see. My eyes aren't working today. Brittany says alcohol never works. It makes everything worse. And I'm a fairly logical person, I think, but I keep going back and blame it all on the bad in my life right now. It's insanity. And yeah, that's it. Exactly. I blamed my drinking on the bad in my life, that I need a drink thing. But,
Hmm.
when I stopped drinking, that those bad things stopped happening. And I had to deal with the bad things that had happened, but they were so much easier to deal with. And it was crazy how much easier life got when drinking wasn't the priority.
Hmm.
Taking care of myself was a priority. And then I was able to take care of the other things.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we have to really separate it and just be like, hey, this is what the drink is, and this is what I am. Because I think you'll find that the drink is causing a lot more problems than you think it is. And that's because we want to protect it. Like, we don't want to give that up. But, when you look at it, and I think a key also is back when I was going in the cycle of 1 to 3 weeks, I was looking at it as 1 to 3 weeks rather than what am I going to do to stay sober today. Had I looked at it as what I'm going to do to stay sober today, I might not have had as much trouble because, now you're looking at like trying to jump the whole staircase rather than walk up each stair. And walking up each stair, taking it slow and saying, what am I going to do today? What am I going to do to battle it today? Right? Tomorrow, don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, but today, this is what I'm going to do.
Like, what am I going to do this minute?
Yeah.
It may have to come down to that. And it did for me. And that was, for me, it was stay busy. That's why I got involved with other people that are sober, got involved in sober activities, hiking, biking, going to sober events like sober barbecues. I didn't think I could have any fun without drinking at a barbecue in a park or something like that. And I have great times when I go. And these were when I first got sober. These were events that had no alcohol, not me going to a party that had alcohol. I stayed away from those in the beginning. I had to learn what I can handle. That was important as well. What do we got here? Somebody mentioned Benjamin mentioned Craig Beck, and I know he's online and he has a whole program there. I haven't really looked too much into that, into him. I've seen a couple of his things. He's got good things to say. The Commodore said, wasted so many beautiful days on this planet, hungover. Love getting up early, working out, then living life now. That's my motivation. Absolutely. Me too.
Hmm.
Hangovers, yeah, like I said, I cured them with alcohol and then I'd go and work out anyways. It was not a pretty picture.
No, definitely don't want to do any machine lifting or any kind of any lifting. Alcohol is meant to be consumed on a couch, sitting, doing absolutely nothing. Lil Diddy says, I don't really have any sober friends. Is it immoral to go to AA just to find sober folks? No, not at all. But sometimes I go from time to time because I'm just cooped up and I want to talk to people. Um, so, yeah. Tim says, 5 months today, feeling like I have a future for the first time in many years. Sending you guys all the best. And for all the newly sober folks, it gets better and easier slowly but surely. Awesome. Congrats and thanks for that, Tim. All
That's right. And
right.
slowly but surely, for a lot of people, it doesn't happen quick enough. For me, just getting sober and being through the physical withdrawals, I thought everything was awesome right away. I guess I was very fortunate that way. But I had to hit a very, very low bottom for that to happen. And so I guess I just appreciated the fact that I was still alive since I almost didn't survive. But 5 months is great, Tim. Good job.
Infinite Beauty by Tracy says, Hi everyone, Marcus Terry, you guys are invaluable. My fiance just returned from rehab 2.5 weeks ago. I'm amazed at the wonderful changes I see and hear. What positive steps did you and your spouses/family take once you became sober? I'm anxious because I'm afraid it won't stick. Any advice? For me, one of the things was getting all the alcohol out of the house when I got back from rehab. Also, I limited contact with my family because my family was a big trigger, like the extended family. So I limited contact for a good 3 months. I pretty much didn't talk to anyone. Like, no one even knew I was in rehab. I just kind of went away. Um, so those were some things I did. Also, make a pact where it's like, hey, if there's anything that ever happens where you need a meeting, you go. Like, there is no, I don't want you gone tonight. It's, whatever. If the person needs a meeting, go to a meeting or go to a talk or give them a lot of space. But also be cautious in where they go and who they hang out with, because some people have old drinking friends, and if they go there, chances are they'll probably, have trouble with it. So maybe don't do that for a while until you get your sober, foundation, stuff like that. What do you have any tips for that one, Terry?
Sure. Yeah. When I got sober, I had a girlfriend at the time. I had destroyed my marriage a couple years before, and we were not living together at that time. But what I did do, I did eventually marry her after about a year and a half of sobriety. But what I did do is I was open. And this is what I did, not what she did for me, but we discussed this, and that was the key. Is I was open with what I was going to do, what I had to do, or what I felt I had to do. It was really people telling me what I needed to do to stay sober, and that's kind of what I did. And I was honest, and I just said I'm not going to lie anymore. That was a big part of my addiction, is I lied. So I just decided I'm going to be honest from this point forward. And this is a discussion I had with her, and I'm going to need to go to meetings. I don't know how many I have to go to, but probably a lot. And she was very supportive of that. Now with just about 5 years of sobriety, I still go to meetings very often because that's where I hang out with sober people, and I can discuss the little issues that happen in life and relate to them. But she understands that sometimes I go in the evening when she's off work, and it's okay. Sometimes she knows that sobriety, that if I'm not sober, we're not going to have a relationship. I'm not going to have a life. Nothing's going to happen productive in my life. So being open, honest, and just kind of finding a common ground. She gave me a lot of space in the beginning as far as what I needed to do, and she hasn't ever told me that I need to back off. She's definitely expressed the fact, especially after we got married, it expressed the fact that you're going to meetings too much, and so I changed the times I went. It's really kind of we're both she's a normal person, so she can have a drink here and there, but we're both into my sobriety. It's not just me. She's very supportive, and that's huge.
Yeah.
But it's just an openness and communication, really, and that's what I try to do now. Even things that are not alcohol related, the relationship is so much better just communicating. The second something goes wrong, the second I made a mistake, or I think I'm mad at her about something, I communicate it so that we can just fix that right away, and the lies don't start, and that endless cycle that eventually would become a drink doesn't start.
Yeah. Brittany has an interesting one. She says, I have a 4-year-old, and I feel like with her in my life, quitting should be easy. It's almost like I'm putting alcohol before my own baby, and it makes me feel like a total failure. Well, Brittany, I think what you need to do is really look at the fact of this box over here, because this box over here is all the stuff that you're separating, and or not separating, the stuff that you're lumping in with your addiction. So, like, you have the alcohol addiction, and you're like, well, I have a 4-year-old. It should be easy to quit, right? That's the same as saying, well, I drink because of emotion, or I do this because of this. If I had these things, then I would quit. And I think what we need to do is look at what addiction's doing, because we look at it and we're like, when we're addicted, we do things that we wouldn't normally do because our body thinks that we need it for survival and our mind thinks we need it for survival. So it's not necessarily you doing the stuff, it's your addiction. It's not you that can't quit for your kid, it's the addiction that won't give up because it's addicted. Right? So if we separate that and say now we have someone who's addicted, who is constantly being hounded by thoughts of drinking, then we separate it and say it doesn't have anything to do with what I'm doing to get my addiction. It has everything to do with the fact that I'm addicted. And once we isolate that and starve the addiction and say, no more, I'm sorry, addiction, you need to shut the hell up and you need to get the hell out of my life. And I don't care if I need to sit here every minute and take every single thought that comes in about drinking and beat it up every minute or figure out how to deal with it every minute. That's what we need to deal with. Because so many times we look at it and we're like, well, that addicted person's a total dick. And it's like, well, anyone whose mind is hijacked by something is going to have symptoms of needing to get it. That's why you have all this crime and stuff around addiction, because people feel like they need to get it. I need to steal so I could support my habit. And it's like, support a habit? Is that really what's going on? Or is it a mind hijacked? Like, you look at it and you go over to countries like Venezuela right now, and you have people in Venezuela who are upstanding, regular suit and tie, go to work people, and now they're fighting each other to eat out of a dumpster. Why? Because they're starving. Now, you would look at it and say, well, if you had alcohol involved, you'd be like, oh, those filthy, dirty alcoholics, what the hell's the matter with them? But because it's food, we look at it different. Now, your brain is looking at alcohol and food the same. Sometimes, in instances like me and Terry, we value alcohol above food. Like, if it was me and you were like, Marcus, you haven't eaten in 3 days, would you like to go get a bottle of booze or a sandwich? I'd be like, a bottle of booze. I wouldn't even think about it. Why?
Right.
Because my brain thought alcohol was the most important thing. And was it because I was a failure? Was it because I was a loser? Was it because I'm a no good nothing? Or was it because my mind was hijacked? It's because my mind is hijacked. And if you study the way the mind works, there's literally little things. They've tested this out where they could go and take a light or a probe and put it in a certain way in the brain, and it'll make you feel a certain way. It'll make you desire a certain thing. They've done studies on people who are crazy sociopath type people. And they're like, well, there's a part of their brain that isn't working like the parts of other people's brains. Does it excuse the behavior? Does it make it okay? No, absolutely not. But does it shed light on what's going on? I think so. And I think for someone like Brittany, we need to shed light on it and say, it doesn't mean you're a bad mom or you're a failure or you're a loser. It means your brain is hijacked by alcohol. Now, luckily, we know the solution. The solution is to starve the habit. And when you starve the habit and you say no more alcohol, things start to change. It might take a while. In the beginning, it might be like, God dang, I want to drink. Man, I really want to drink right now. Over time, you'll be like Terry, where it's like, I don't even think about cravings anymore. It's not even a thought. And even when they do come, I'm like, stupid ass craving, go away. You go away. I'm going to watch the baseball game and have my Coke. That's what I'm going to do. Right? So we got to look at that and we got to separate and say, you are not your addiction. Like the lady whose husband or whoever it was that went to rehab. He comes back, he's like a different person. He's the real person. That's the person. The other person is hijacked by alcohol, right? And you watch this, and it was interesting. My wife started watching a documentary on Netflix about people who are on death row. Fascinating documentary, depressing as hell, but fascinating. And so last night we're watching it, and I'm like, I wonder if there's a correlation between people who go into prison mentally stable, for lack of a better word. I mean, obviously, when they did the act, they probably weren't thinking of a right mind. But here they are, they're in prison. And I was like, I wonder if there's a correlation between prison environment and mental illness. And there is. There's a huge correlation between people who are in that environment, that society, that develop mental illness. They literally develop it because of the situation. When you look at alcohol, alcoholics that are in a situation, they develop mental problems. They develop thinking problems. They develop insanity. In my case, I went completely batshit fucking crazy down the road wacko from alcohol. Is that the normal me? I mean, you look at me now, I'm sure it's probably debatable whether I'm sane or not, but I'm doing okay, right? It's debatable. We'll have a poll in the audience. But the fact of the matter is the alcohol situation caused that. And we look at it and it's like, take it away. And luckily with alcohol, when you take it away, the brain bounces back extremely quick. Extremely quick. You might not be the person you want to be in 30 days, but over time, it'll happen. And it is pretty quick. I mean, these things usually are not irreparable damage. But the stuff you do when you're drinking could be irreparable damage. Like you get in a car, you run people over drinking, that's irreparable. You can't get that back. But luckily, some of the things in our mind we can get back. And that's what we focus on here is let's focus on what we can get back so that we don't go far enough. Luckily, if we're here, usually we haven't done something that's irreparable. Let's stop where we're ahead.
Keep moving forward, right?
Exactly.
You know, Brittany, I know a few mothers that have been in the same situation you're in, and they've gotten sober, and they still have some shame in what happened. But what they did do is they were able to get sober. They were able to move forward, and they were able to actually help other people that are in your situation now. And that's what they do, and they're very proud. They don't feel like failures anymore. They're good members of society, and you know they made mistakes. I made mistakes. We all have from our drinking, but they were able to push it forward and get sober, and they're happy now, and they're able to be part of their kid's life now. So it's a good thing. Let's see, what do we got? I had some people in my life giving me anxiety, which made my attempts to stop drinking difficult. I had to politely get away from them, and it helped. And, you know, that's what I had to do too. When I got sober, I stopped hanging out with pretty much all of my old friends, at least right away. and then I learned what I could and couldn't do. I don't meet my friends in bars anymore, but I can go hang out with them, and I'm actually friends with with most of those old drink. Well, even the drinking friends, I'm still friends with. I just don't see them anymore because the only place I saw them was in bars.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's a good thing to get away at least for a little while, and that's Marcus had just mentioned that he had to get away from his family, at least in the beginning. Uh, what do we got? The Commodore, you also said I ruined a relationship too, Terry, but I think in a weird way it was catalyst for me to stop. I sometimes have regrets, but being sober doesn't bring back bad feelings. Drinking does. Absolutely. I don't know that losing my relationship was a catalyst for me to stop or not, but it was part of my journey,
Yeah.
and that's it. You know, my legal troubles were part of my journey. Did they get me to stop? Absolutely not. I kept drinking for another year after I got in trouble.
Mhm.
So it might have been part of the journey and one of the steps, but it was just finally hitting that bottom, and I had to do something. Good job, funny, hilarious videos. 1 week off alcohol and weed and feel like a new man. Great. Good job. Congrats.
That's cool. And Holly and Brittany, you guys could probably, I think you're both in the Facebook group. I know Brittany is, and I know we have a Holly, but I'm not sure if it's the same one. But that's a good place to connect as well. Definitely a good place, and a lot of feedback. A lot of good people putting good things in there about what's helping them and stuff like that. I'll put the link again in the box. You guys want to join the Facebook group? Also, if you guys like what we're doing here and you want to support the channel, you could support the channel by going to talksober.com. Click on the, I think it says support the channel. What does it say on there? Let me check it out.
High tech redneck, you say, how do I be a friend and not an enabler when an alcoholic is willingly drinking and not wanting to be sober right now? I got a friend that's, my opinion would be that he is possibly an alcoholic, but really you're not an alcoholic unless you say you are, or maybe you are. I don't know. That's to be debated. But um, I don't go drink. I don't go hang out with him when he's drinking. I don't. I don't support him. I've told him that if he wants any help, call me anytime. I still see him a lot because I see him when he's walking his dogs. He walks the same place I walk mine. So we're still great friends. I just don't. I don't hang out with him when he's drinking or smoking or doing whatever.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm not going to buy him anything. But just, I've told him, when he was, he had a particularly bad night, and we had to carry him home and all that. And the next day, I just told him, I'm here for you, man. If you want some help, if not, that's fine. Because really, it's him that's going to be the one that has to take responsibility for his sobriety, and he's the one that's going to have to want to get sober. There's nothing I can do about that.
Yep. Brittany says the Facebook group has been amazing for me. And also, if you guys do want to support the channel on talksober.com, there's a big button that says support the live show. And we will send you a free, well, not free, you got to support the channel, but a bonus Talk Sober t shirt, nice embroidered Talk Sober logo. If you guys can't afford it, I do have some extra ones. We might be able to get to you depending on the sizes we have. But yeah, we want to make it a resource where if you guys can help out, help out. If you can't, don't worry about it. Get sober, and then later, if you have the means, help us out, which is cool. So yeah, that is over at Talk Sober. Also, the Facebook group link is in the chat box. You guys can join that. That's a great resource as well. Yeah. So, any last minute questions or responses? Let us know. We got about 8 minutes left.
We have silence.
The
The
sounds.
hardest part for the cycle of addiction, or at least the part that I see most people struggle with, is the once you become dependent, then you need alcohol all the time. You want to quit, That's where I was for quite a long time. I wanted to stop. Every time I tried to stop, I'd have withdrawals, then I'd relapse. And that's the biggest trouble for many people that I talk to is they get in that endless cycle. And even the director of the rehab that Marcus and I both went to, he had gone through rehab 13 times. But the and he finally got sober. I think what did he I saw him last year and I think he celebrated something like 30 years of sobriety. So he was able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the one thing is I've also seen people that relapse that don't come back and they don't survive their relapse. So that's the dangerous fact of this too. Let's see. I don't have any more comments.
All right, yeah. Yeah, and I think the key is just to really, really starve the addiction, separate it from you, and really, really focus on what you are going to do to get sober. Very important because that's you got to have something to combat it because it's going to come up. It comes up. Our society is very pro drinking, so it's literally everywhere, and we just have to realize, hey, the problem is the drink. That's the problem. That is the problem right now. We need to get rid of it and stop thinking that, all these other things are what causes it. And also realize that when you get sideways and bent out of shape about your life, right, that could be your brain thinking of all the things that are bad so that it could get a drink. Right? It's a baffling issue dealing with alcoholism. It's something that'll creep up on you. It's something that it wants to drink at all costs because it knows that's the way to shut off. That's the way to hide and not feel anything. And a lot of times, what this is about feeling. And it's interesting because I look at my kids. I have teenagers, and they got emotional stuff that goes on in their life, and I'm teaching them, hey, it's okay to just sit with uncomfortable emotions. Like it's okay to just sit and be sad. I know our society is not supportive of that, but that's really the best way. Just sit and be like, hey, you know what? That's what's going on right now. Whatever, I'm just sad, or I got racing thoughts, or I'm anxious, and just be like, it's okay. I don't need to drown them. We live in a society that unfortunately I feel a little guilty about sometimes because I'm a marketer in my other business. And our society is all about take a pill to get rid of the tiniest bit of discomfort. Like the tiniest bit of discomfort, get rid of it. And we're constantly trying to push out these bad feelings. And it's like, sometimes you just need to sit with it. Like I found out that back pain I was dealing with for months, it's indigestion, right? And
Oh,
it's like if I stop drinking soda at night and stop having these inflammatory things, it goes away. Now, if I had been taking some kind of crazy, pain medicine, I'd still be sitting here eating things that were bad for me and not dealing with the issue. But I'd be feeling better about it. And alcoholism is a way of feeling better about the issue without doing anything about it. Like I don't want to feel better, I want to be better. That's what I want in my life, and if that means I got to walk through a little bit of unhappy emotions or whatever, that's okay. That's part of life. I wouldn't know happiness if I didn't know sadness. I wouldn't know those things. I wouldn't know the gratefulness of what it's like to wake up every day not being hungover, not being chained to this addiction. I wouldn't know that was what that was like if I didn't have the addiction. And I'm grateful. I'm sitting here right here. I'm like, how much do I love my life where I get to talk to hundreds of alcoholics, thousands of alcoholics every week and share my experience with them. Like that's cool. I wouldn't have had that, and I could have keep pushing it away and everything. Brittany says, I just had a good friend pass away over the weekend due to addiction. Sorry for your loss. That's a tough thing.
yeah.
Unfortunately, addiction takes way too many people before it's their time. It wasn't alcohol, but he was sober for 4 years and he slipped once and is gone. That's the reality of it. Like I could go out and I could slip tonight and I could drive home and I could crash my car. That's a reality. That's a reality we got to live with. Um, and, let that be a lesson to all of us that one slip could be the end. It could be. And we look at it and we say, well, shit, I don't want to have a slip. And then we look at it after God forbid we do have a slip, and we're like, well, I had a slip. I'm not going to let it go any farther. Stop it right then and there and say, you know what? I'm not going to get the, oh, well, fuck it, I had one. Well, fuck it, we'll just have 50. And fuck it, I'll just go back out. We're going to say, you know what? Stop it. That's it. Intervene in your own life as many times as you can, because we don't know. Could be the last day we wake up. Could be. I have no idea. And we gotta protect what we have, and we gotta be grateful and say, I'm grateful that I'm alive. I'm grateful that addiction did not take me today.
Yep.
And you know what, addiction? Fuck off. You're not gonna take me tomorrow either. Because I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna build tools that are gonna protect me against it. All right, Mark, good to see you here. Just joined live, listened on YouTube many times. I've been a cop for 27 years and have drank to cope for 25 years. 3 days sober. Look forward to speaking with you guys. Good to have you here, Mark. Thanks
Right
for
on.
being a cop. That's cool. I think you say thank you for your service
Ontario,
to cops,
Canada.
too.
Right on.
Cool. All right. I feel the same way. So great without alcohol. Absolutely. Life can be great without alcohol. Alcohol is what's telling you it's not going to be.
Life is awesome without alcohol. Absolutely.
It is. I never thought it would be. I was like, this is going to suck, man. And I was like, wow, this could be totally awesome.
It is. Spend way less money, too.
You do? Seriously. Although I still have a habit of buying useless things.
Yeah, but still.
It's cheaper than alcohol.
Yeah, I think I was about $300 to $600 a month on alcohol. So yeah, it's a good chunk of change.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
Mark,
I'll never forget one
good
time
luck.
I had a live Vegas meeting, and
Yeah.
we got the bar tab when I was drinking, and it was $5,000. I was like, that's an expensive weekend.
Yeah.
And now we just had our Vegas meeting. Didn't cost me a damn dime in alcohol.
Well, there you go. That's
I was
awesome.
like, man, that's cool. It's so much more profitable.
All right. Absolutely. Well, thank you, everybody.
All right, guys. Thanks for being here. Stay sober. Check us out on the Facebook group. If you do want to support the channel, go over to talksober.com, click the big support button. You get a bunch of MP3s and notes from our videos and tools to help you stay sober. We'll also ship you a embroidered Talk Sober t-shirt. Very nice t-shirts. And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
And make sure you subscribe if you're new.